Despite how it can sometimes be a drag, IDW Sonic has this weird magnetic pull. It keeps me on the edge of my seat, issue after issue, waiting not just for the next villain to monologue or for Sonic to do another backflip, but for the one thing that's been quietly building in the background. The Tails arc. The arc we've been promised. And the arc he deserves. Welcome to Tails Nexus, the only place where you won't be bullied by the community for having an additional tail. Not that you would, but if you just so happen to be a two-tailed fox watching this, please contact me immediately. And then expect 15 follow-up notifications asking where you are, what you're doing, and whether you'd like to co-host the channel. I'm gonna speedrun this intro because if I don't, 60% of you will vanish faster than Sonic at a red light. Today's video is all about Tails in the IDW series, how they handle his character right, how he's grown, and what key moments shaped him, and why this version of Tails is written right in all the best ways possible. Spoilers for the comics ahead. Now, before we dive into how IDW handles Tails, we need to agree on something first. Who is Tails? Fundamentally, at his core, Tails is an underdog, a kid with immense talent who constantly struggles with his own self-confidence. He's a genius, no doubt, but he's often held back not by a lack of skill, but by his own self-doubt. Originally, Tails was created to be a cute little sidekick for Sonic, a tag-along character meant to highlight how cool the blue blur was. But over time, specifically after about 6 years of development, he began to evolve. He started to stand up for himself, show independence, and bring his own brilliance to the table. He became more than a sidekick, he became a symbol. Of course, it'd be irresponsible to ignore the fact that Sega has a nasty habit of slapping the reset button on his character arc every second game, but despite that, Tails consistently represents something powerful. The idea that even if you're unsure of yourself, even if the world sees you as just a sidekick, you can still rise to the occasion. He teaches kids that self-worth doesn't come from others' approval, and that you don't always need someone else to pull you out of the mud. He reminds us that brilliance doesn't mean anything if you're too afraid to use it, and that it's okay to stumble while figuring it all out. Now, I'm intentionally leaving out some of his more heroic achievements, overcoming his fears, defying impossible odds, because while those are cool, they aren't what define Tails at the root. This is the foundation, this is the beginning, this is the version of Tails that matters the most. So, how does IDW portray this version of him? Well, right from the very first issue, we get a glimpse. Tails is shown wrestling with the events of Sonic Forces, specifically blaming himself for letting Sonic get captured. It's subtle, only a few panels, but it's there. He's not just brushing off the past, he's carrying it. And while it's never explicitly explored in depth, we can infer the weight of it by connecting it to what we already know from the games. For all of Sonic Force's flaws, its ashes gave way to a much better story in the IDW comics. A place where Tails' internal struggles are allowed to grow into something meaningful. What's important to note is that IDW doesn't immediately put Tails' internal struggle front and center. In fact, they kind of do the opposite. They show us a pretty confident, heroic fox, someone who swoops in to save Sonic from getting flattened by an egg hammer like it's just another Tuesday. He's snarky, a little playful, and definitely leans into the tech support with a bite roll. Admittedly, it feels a bit like he's just there to deliver exposition. But hey, if the exposition comes to the side of subtle trauma development, I'll take that deal any day of the week. Even though Tails pops up here and there, his next major appearance doesn't really hit until the end of issue 9 and again in issue 11. Now, in issue 9, we see him helping strategize and prep for a major assault. You might be thinking, why are we talking about this? Isn't this just standard Tails being smart? And yes, it is. It doesn't directly tie into that emotional foundation we've laid out earlier, but hang tight. Not everything has to dive headfirst into psychological drama. Sometimes you need a little setup before you drop the mic. Issues 9 and 10 are basically the warm-up act for what's coming in issue 11. And I won't drag this out because explaining it gets a little conspiracy corkboard if you overthink it, but in short, Tails has this wild idea to crash a hijacked ship into Metal Overlord, and against all odds, it actually works. The beauty isn't just in the move itself, but in his reaction. When it succeeds, he doesn't have that classic, whew, that was a close call. It's more like, wait, that actually worked? It's subtle, but it shows this layered version of Tails. He's brilliant, sure, but he's still that kid who second guesses whether his plans will land. And when they do, you can see the surprise written all over him. Tails' growth throughout the IDW comics is genuinely noticeable. One obvious reason is the difference in how the comics and games handle storytelling. The comics have the breathing room to explore character nuance, while the games often feel like they're sprinting to the finish line with as few cutscenes as possible. In IDW, Tails still struggles internally, sometimes in small ways, sometimes on a bigger emotional scale, but those struggles don't stop him from growing. In fact, they're part of what makes that growth feel real. A standout example of this is how the comics emphasize Tails going solo, and while the story mentions that he's been operating independently, we actually get some decent proof of that in action. Well, sort of. When Sonic and Tails go off to find Mr. Tinker, they're ambushed by Ruff and Tumble. Instead of teaming up, they decide to take one opponent each. No hesitation. Tails immediately goes after Ruff, confident he can take him down on his own. And spoiler alert, he absolutely styles on Ruff, as he should. Tails doesn't just win the fight, he outsmarts his opponent. He disarms him, counters him, and walks away like it was just another Tuesday. And the best part? He didn't need to go through a 7-episode emotional breakdown arc just to get there. He handled it with calm, calculated brilliance, like the genius we know he is. Then there's the Metal Virus Saga, one of the darkest points in the entire comic series. And where is Tails? He's not wailing in a corner, he's not giving up or waiting for Sonic to show up and save the day. He's actively working to find hope in an almost completely hopeless scenario. This fox, no, this kid is staring down the end of the world and holding his ground. He's terrified, sure, but he's still fighting, still creating, still believing. He doesn't need Sonic to hold his hand through it anymore. While we're still waiting for that long-awaited Tails spotlight arc, these moments speak volumes. They show that Tails isn't just holding on to the foundation he was built on, he's rising above it. He's becoming more independent, more courageous, and more willing to trust his own instincts. The IDW comics are slowly but surely giving Tails the growth he's always deserved. Heck, let's talk about the fight between Kitsunami and Tails in issue 50, because if you're looking for another powerful moment of growth, this one's a standout. Once again, Tails is alone, but this time it's not by choice. He's been forced into it. Kitsunami isn't just another opponent, he's an unstable weapon with a bone to pick and zero chill, actively threatening to wipe Tails off the map with full confidence and malice. Does Tails panic? Does he call out for Sonic? Cry for backup? Freeze in fear? Absolutely not. He holds his ground. He does everything he can to handle the situation, understanding just how dangerous it is, but still trying to de-escalate it, to reason with Kit, to find a peaceful resolution. He knows the stakes, and more importantly, he knows he might not win. That ties directly into his self-doubt. And it's not that he thinks that he can do it, it's that he knows he has to try anyway. And that's what makes it so good. No Sonic, no gadgets, no safety net, just Tails, alone in the storm, trying to do the right thing even when he's not sure he can. That right there, that's growth. That's development. That's Tails finally starting to believe in his own strength, even if it's still shaky. Now, before I jump into why this version of Tails works so well overall, I want to highlight a few moments from the comics that I consider peak Tails. Not necessarily the ones that define him, but the ones that make you stop and go, wait, Tails did what? Let's kick it off with the Deadly Six. In this scene, Sonic is present, but he's momentarily incapacitated thanks to the Deadly Six's messings. That leaves Tails to take control of the situation. And what does he do? He cleans house. Armed with nothing but his raw brain power, some Zeddy Zappers, and a few I've been waiting to use this moments, he systematically neutralizes the entire squad like he's the Doomslayer in a supercut of pure destruction. He even takes down Zavok, who usually walks around acting like he's the final boss of the universe. Sure, it's not a flawless win, he barely pulls it off, but it's still a win. And then, just to top it all off, Tails looks at these so-called threats dead in the eye, hits them with the cold-blooded get off my planet before literally stuffing them into a rocket and launching them straight back to whatever hole they crawled out of. Like, what? Absolute unit behavior. And then there's the Starline standoff, another top-tier Tails moment. This time, Starline's got this smug little plan to kidnap Tails for experimentation. Probably thinking, ah yes, I'll just grab the child genius and dissect his brain for science. But nope, not today. Tails doesn't panic. He doesn't crumble. He sees the trap for what it is and flips it on its head. Now here's where it gets really good. He doesn't even win by using his own inventions. He uses Bell's hidden override function, something Starline didn't even know existed, to trick him and take back control. It's a perfect counterplay. Tactical, efficient, and done with that signature Tails smirk that says, yep, I'm 10 steps ahead of you. The best part, both of these scenes share a core theme. Tails either has to save Sonic or acts without him. and in both cases, he absolutely delivers. This isn't backup Tails, this isn't wait for Sonic to arrive Tails, this is Tails who's fully capable, fully independent, and fully aware of his own potential. It's a far cry from the kid we used to see fumbling with his own confidence. He's not just a sidekick anymore, he's becoming a lead in his own right. The comics aren't just reminding us that Tails is smart, they're showing us that he's sharp, resourceful, and willing to act on his own instincts. He's not asking for permission anymore. He's not sitting around waiting for a cue, he's doing. Watching these moments play out feels like watching a longtime friend finally realize how strong they are. And it's just so satisfying to see. Tails doesn't need the spotlight to shine, he earns it, quietly but powerfully, every time he gets the chance. And now we arrive to the big question. Why does IDW do Tails right? Well, it starts with something deceptively simple. They acknowledge where Tails is at. They don't ignore his baggage. They don't hit the reset button and pretend Sonic Forces didn't happen. Instead, they take what the game's left behind. A version of Tails shaken by failure, by fear, by self-doubt, and rather than scolding him for it or sweeping it under the rug, they build on it. They allow it to exist in the background of his character and let him grow from it, piece by piece. It's subtle, but it's there. And it's real. They respect his foundation, the image of Tails as a brilliant but unsure underdog, and instead of tearing it down or overhauling it, they build on it. That foundation becomes a sturdy platform, and IDW constructs a whole house on top. Not just a little room off to the side where he stores his gadgets, but an open-plan, multi-story creative space where Tails gets to experiment, fail, succeed, lead, and be himself. They don't treat him like a weak sidekick who exists just to play the moral support role when the protagonist gets moody. They don't make him the "oh no, Sonic's in trouble, I must be useless" guy. But instead, they show that Tails can stand on his own. And not just stand, but thrive. He can be heroic, he can be clever, he can be compassionate, cunning, and capable all at once. And sometimes, he can be cooler than Sonic. Okay, not too much cooler. IDW knows where the brand lines are drawn. If Tails outshone Sonic completely, a bunch of Blue Hedgehog fans would probably riot. But the point is, Tails doesn't need to be in Sonic's shadow anymore. He can stand beside him, and sometimes even ahead of him, without it breaking the balance. That's a massive win for Tails fans. And what makes it work so well is that none of it feels forced. It's not a sudden Tails is awesome now because we said so. His growth is consistent, earned, and often quiet. It's written with care, it's written with love. He's not shoved into the spotlight, he grows into it. Moment by moment, mission by mission. He earns your respect, just like he's earning his own. IDW understands something the games often forget. Tails is more than just a mechanic, more than just a sidekick, more than just a backup hero. He's a character with thoughts, feelings, flaws, and courage, and they've given him space to breathe, to fail, to fight, to be. That's why IDW Tails is done right. Not because he's suddenly perfect or flawless or unstoppable, but because he's finally real. And honestly, that's all we've ever wanted. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and drop a like, and let me know in the comments what's your favorite Tails moment in the IDW comics is. I love hearing which panels or moments hit hardest for you. Got an idea for another IDW topic I should cover next? Feel free to toss it down below. I'm always on the lookout for more fun deep dives. And as always, keep flying high.